I'm joined by Peter Hargreaves. He is one half of Hargreaves Lansdown, the UK's biggest retail broker. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Before we talk a little bit about what's happening with the brokerage, I'd just like to talk to you about the economy, because we've got a very, very big week next week. The spending review is going to be front and centre. We're already having an awful lot of chat about defence cuts. You've said already that you think that the spending review is the right thing to do, and you just hope that the government will be able to follow it through. But isn't it going to have a devastating effect? Aren't those cuts going to have a devastating effect on the economy?
I honestly believe they're not cutting enough. You know, if they're worried about the economy, they shouldn't let the government have money, because any government, you well know, if you give a government £5, you're lucky if you get £1 back. If you put money in the people's hands, you get full good value. If they really, really are frightened of the economy going into recession, they ought to cut taxes. That's what they ought to cut, and cut spending even more, because the government wastes money like no tomorrow.
I'm sure that you saw Philip Green's assessment of government spending, and there's no doubt that he did identify quite big savings that could be made. But overall, at the moment, if taxes were to be cut, surely that would go against what the government is trying to do in terms of getting the deficit down in a time frame that can be sold to the IMF and sold to bond holders.
Every single statistic you can ever see anywhere in the world says that if you put taxes up, the tax take goes down. If you put taxes down, the tax take goes up. So if they want to solve the deficit, they ought to put taxes down.
Which taxes are you interested in specifically? Is it the 50% tax?
Taxes in general. The national insurance that people pay, income taxes. The only tax I'm quite happy about going up is VAT, because I don't think it's a bad thing to tax spending. People have got to repair their balance sheets in this country, and the country has to repair its balance sheet. And so we go through a little bit of hardship to do it, and perhaps it's not going to be great for our economy in the short term. But the sooner we have a balanced budget, the better is the country ready to go forward. Otherwise, we'll have 15 years of cuts by death by 1,000 cuts.
The problem is, of course, that any cuts that come in, and we know the scale of the cuts that George Osborne is planning to implement next week. We just don't know exactly where they're going to fall, and that's obviously the horse trading that's going on at the moment. But what effect do you think that the cuts that are currently in place are likely to have on the economy? Is that enough to tip it into recession?
I don't think so. You see, it depends where you cut. If you cut the highest paid people in the public sector, if you cut quangos, that's not going to affect the recession. Those are people that aren't going to be instrumental. The front line, you can leave as it is. I mean, even that's overmanned massively, but you can leave the front line there. It's the highly paid people that do nothing but sit in meetings all day long. They don't do anything, half the people in the public sector.
The concern, of course, is that if the government has less money, then it's not contracting out, and people like businesses that are making things, businesses that are road companies and construction companies will be the ones that are affected. Do you buy into that argument?
Well, I mean, it is crazy at the moment. The one thing that needs doing in this country, from top to bottom, is the road resurfacing. Now
that requires loads of public money, and yes, you just said you want to cut public money.
But you could save it from the people that are employed by the public sector. There are thousands and thousands of people who have jobs that they can do in 10 minutes a week.
Now, you've recently handed over the reins of your own company. How does that feel after such a long time in control or in joint control?
Do you know, it's been wonderful. I've had a lot of anxiety thinking about what I might do, and I'm worried about it. But the guy I've got is so good that I am so relaxed about it, and we get on really well together. And, you know, he's younger than me, he's got more energy than me, he's full of ideas, and he's got far more enthusiasm than me. I am 64. I haven't got the energy when I was 38. He's 38.
When you look back and then look at what's coming, what's about to come up, do you think that there is still the same investor confidence going forward in the UK and in the stock market here?
No, investor confidence has dipped. I mean, it's dipped since a year ago, because the stock market was booming a year ago. People are concerned. They're looking at interest rates. Are they likely to go up? They're looking at, they've made good profits on the bonds they've bought and thinking, well, I can't make much more on that. They think, well, if if these cuts do affect the economy, will that be good for British companies in general? And British companies in general will probably have lower sales. But what British companies do, they reduce their costs, and that's what the government should be doing as well.
And if we look at the value of the pound at the moment, a weaker pound is obviously good for exports. Is that something that you would like to see remain where it is at the moment?
Well, the only good decision that Gordon Brown made was not to go into the euro, and of course we've devalued the pound. No one's noticed we've devalued the pound. It's been very, very painless. The only time you notice the pound's been devalued is when you go abroad and you get your hotel bill and you think, wow, that's a little bit more expensive than last year. But it hasn't really affected people terribly, and of course it has been very, very good for our economy in the short term.
And so far, what's your prognosis on how the coalition government is doing?
Well, they're talking extremely well. What they're saying, I believe in. My real worry is that I don't know that they'll have the courage to carry it through.
Now, you also have, you've got a little bit more time on your hands these days. Can you see yourself taking up some other roles, potentially as a consultant, perhaps, to the government?
I've never been asked, so it doesn't matter. I'm probably a little bit too outspoken for the government. I think I'd like to mentor people in business. I'd like, possibly to people come along and say, well, I've started this business, it's not doing very well. Can you see what I'm doing wrong, and what else should I do? I think I quite enjoy doing that for people.
A sort of financial Dragon's Den?
Yes, although I wouldn't want to do it publicly like that.
Of course. Peter Hargreaves, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in to talk to us today.